Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel. So we have a stick. Do you want a stick? Let's have a hexagon. There we go. Got a ground. So the idea is, in play mode, we can grab it and like throw it around and stuff without using the imp. Yeah, so in here I taught, this has already come out, this tutorial, I taught how to stick stuff to stuff. And you have to you'd have to finesse it to get it to work really nice and whatever, so you don't get stuck. But the way this works is, this object, when it gets bumped, emits an object that is inside this group, which is the same object but it's a different colour, so that you can tell something happened. And then it destroys itself and whatnot. And that's about it. And because that is emitted inside this group, and this is non-movable, then when this group rotates with the ball controls, this will rotate exactly perfectly with the ball. So it looks like it's stuck to the surface. And we're going to do exactly that same thing in here. So first, when do we want this to be grabbed? We'll have to have some logic on here of some kind. So we'll have a imp tracker over here. So if the imp, we'll have some logic in here as well. So we'll get a chip. Now we'll put a trigger zone on it. So if I give this a particular label like object, then we can look for that label with the trigger zone and only care about that type of label. And now when it's close enough to it, then it is in the zone, and it's sending a signal from detected, so it knows that it's being detected by a trigger zone. And then this can go into a different mode. So we'll get a selector. So a selector has these different modes, and you can wire a signal into one of the modes to make that mode active. So when it becomes detected, we'll put it into B, and B, A is always the default, so when it goes to B, then that will be our move with the imp mode. So then if we have a very simple example, we'll just have a teleporter. So this is when it's moved with the imp mode, then it's going to teleport itself to a tag in the imp. So we'll call that grab point. So we call this tag grab point, and then we go to the teleporter and look for grab point. I can use up and down on the D-pad to cycle through the tags, and it'll match orientation as well, so that if we rotate the imp and stuff, it will keep matching that orientation. Okay, so we go towards it, and it got stuck to the imp, and now you can rotate it and move it around and stuff just fine. You can see it jump to the imp and jump to the imp's orientation and stuff. And if we go in from the side, we want to grab it from the side, not from the front like that. So we want to kind of change how that works. So if we scope into the imp tracker, which is basically just a special group, then we can put this grab point out in the scene, or out in this tracker, and just select it to make sure it's got that kind of symbol above it. That means the gizmo isn't set and it's just wherever this tag is. But we want to be able to emit this within this tracker from this over here. So when it goes into grabbed mode, then we'll emit the thing that's in this scope, but we can't actually target that from the emitter. So we need this to be a group, or maybe a sculpt, or some object that we can actually target with the emitter. So I tend to make a group. So let's just snap it to the grid, and if I just I'll just copy that microchip, put it above it, and it's okay. So we know where the center is. It's right in the middle of those two. And we don't want any logic in there. And we can just group them up by selecting them and then click group. And now we can target that like that. Because it's a group, it can be targeted, and then we don't need any speed. Just want it to be once. There's no max emitted at once or anything. Now it's disappeared because it's been powered off because it's the what it's going to emit. So if we go to show hide and turn off preview invisibility, we can see that hidden object. And we want to adjust this grab point so that by default the gizmo is kind of in the center of the face of the gadget itself, but we want it to be there. So I'll just grab that to move the gizmo and just put it there. And then if we move out, the whole gizmo kind of seems to get bigger, and you can see it's in the middle there. So when we, if you look at the emitter, it's got this red line going to the object that it's going to emit, and it goes to the center point of the object, and that's the point it's going to emit from. So this is going straight to the center of that, where we put that gizmo, which is perfect. Cool, but where do we want to actually emit this? We want to emit it where it currently is. So like if this object was over here and like that, and then it grabbed it, we want that tag to appear so that this doesn't move at all. So like if the tag was emitted to be perfectly in the same spot as the teleporter gizmo is, then it wouldn't move at all until we like move the imp away, and that's what we want to happen. So first let's tweak the teleporter and grab the gizmo, press triangle, and that kind of snaps it to a point on the grid, and now we have like an easy reference point to where that is. So I'm going to put this at the top near the back just so we can remember that spot, and then we emit the tag to be in exactly the same spot and in the same orientation and everything. So grab that and press triangle to get it on the same grid and put it near the back, near the center. Okay, and if you have both tweaks at the same time, you can see if they match up, and it looks like they do. Cool. So that will emit that tag at the same point, but in the imp, and because this tag isn't movable or anything, it will just move as the imp moves away. So let's just try that out. So go towards it. Now it's kind of stuck to the imp, and I can rotate and stuff. Make the trigger zone a lot smaller, like that, and it's just in front of the grab point. And if we go in from the side, oh, now it's stuck to the side. And cool. So now we want that to only really trigger when we pull R2, and when we let go of R2, it will stop grabbing. So let's get a controller sensor. I'll set it to remote controllable, which means we don't have to possess like a puppet or something to control it. And R2 will use, we'll say when it's like past some threshold. So if R2 is more than 34%, I'm going to say, then we want to be grabbing stuff. And so go into that mode, whichever one we're kind of hovering over. So we'll use a signal manipulator and wire that in. So when that goes beyond that threshold, then this will send a pulse and trigger some logic. So I think we'll leave that just on all the time. So this always knows that it's in range of being grabbed, and I'll just wire that into a node. But we want to know if we're in range of being grabbed and we get the grab signal from here. So I'll use a variable to communicate kind of if it's meant to be grabbing right now. So variable, and I'll say grab start, and we'll just set that with a variable modifier, and we can use up and down to go through that. And now we've got grab start, and we'll set it to whatever this is sending. So when this pulses, it sends a 1 value for 1 frame and then goes back to 0 the rest of the time. So the moment we want to actually start the grab, it will send a 1 and then it will be back to 0. So if we just continuously set it to whatever this is sending, then we can use another variable modifier in here, which will get that value. If we're getting that value, then we want to care about if we're in range or not. So then we can wire that into here. And if we're in range and we care about being in range because we started the grab, then we go into B mode. Cool. So I'll just do a little thing so we can tell if we're in range or not. So I'll go and make a keyframe that just makes it glow a little bit. And I'll copy that wire into there. So while we're in range, it'll have a little glow, but it won't follow. So it's got a glow, but it won't follow. And we move the imp away and it doesn't follow unless we start pulling R2. And now it went into follow mode. Now it's following us. And then when we let go of R2, we want to drop it. So we'll have a similar one for grab end. And we'll just copy these things. Grab end. And this will be a pulse, but we want it to pulse when this goes off instead of when it goes on. So when we are above the threshold and go below the threshold and stop holding R2. So if we go to custom remapper mode, it's got a whole load of settings on here. Just go down to edge mode and it's got pulse set on, which is the same as pulse on input on. So it's the same thing. And then pulse set off. So when it goes off, it will send a pulse. So this will flash to a 1 for a moment. And then we'll do the same thing over here. So we get the grab end. And when it gets that signal, it will go to input A. And that can just work all the time. It doesn't really matter. If it wasn't grabbed, then it still goes to A because that's the default mode anyway. Now let's see if that works. So I'll grab it. And it's like following properly and stuff, and then I let go and it goes back to mode A and doesn't try to follow. So I let go and I can, like, if I'm quick, I can like grab it in the air and stuff. Things like that. Cool. Now one last thing is if there are two right next to each other, which one of them should it grab? And I'll kind of make the make it clearer what the problem is by making the trigger zone bigger. So if I'm over here, then it'll grab that one. That's fine. If I'm over here, which one should it grab? And it doesn't really know, so it grabs both of them. But we want maybe the closest one to the to this point here at the imp tip to be grabbed. So for that, I'll actually need a sculpt of some kind for this trick. And that doesn't actually have to do anything. We can just make it invisible and non-collidable. And then we can use a follower over here, which is affecting the sculpt. So the reason I'm doing this is because of a cool trick. So if I just demonstrate that trick, we have a tag, and then we have a follower on the sculpt, and we can like make this smaller so we can see. So this gizmo here looks for tags of the right name. So if we could give this a name, It looks for tags of the right name, and the closest one it will go towards, unless it's got 0 speed and strength and everything. And then it'll just sit there, but it'll still find the closest one. And you can see it's sending a signal out of this when we play time. It's sending a signal out of tag output. But if there's 2 of them that in the zone, it will only do that from the closest one. And if we like move this closer, now it will do it from this one. So that's kind of a quick trick to finding the closest object to another point in space. So we're doing that with this follower, and we will move the gizmo up to the imp tip. It doesn't actually matter that it's far away from the sculpt it's kind of theoretically part of. Put that on the imp tip and have that look for a tag in here. Oh, let's make the speed and everything down. Okay. And let's put this tag kind of in the center of this, roughly. And this will be called grab closest, like that. And this will look for grab closest. We want to know if we're hovering over it, and it's in the range, but also it's the closest one. So if there's more than one in the range, only the closest one thinks it's grabbable. So if we wire this into the power of the tag, then we're saying, is it in the range? If it is, then we care about if it's the closest, and then we'll see if it's we're starting a grab, and then we'll put that into the mode B, and we'll have that power this keyframe as well. So as we go into play mode and we near the thing, then it's only lighting up if it's the closest one to the imp tip and it's in the range. So if we have a few of these, both of these are in the range, but only one of them is closer to the imp tip. And now only that one will move. And even though they're like really close to each other, only one of them will start following the imp. Stack these up. There we go. Yay! And none of that is using the actual imp grab. So that means it'll work fine for the secondary move controller. Only thing that doesn't work is stuff like throwing it. Because it's teleporting, when something is teleporting, the physics is completely off for it. And so, like, when you let go and it stops teleporting, it doesn't have any inertia or any velocity. It's zeroed out all the time. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.